Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're going deep, really deep, into the world of religion and morality.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is. We're using this academic paper as our guide. Religion and Morality. It came out in 2014 by Ryan McKay and Harvey Whitehouse. And get this.
Okay.
Atheists and believers alike, they both think good deeds are, less moral if they're done for religious reasons.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, huh?
It is counterintuitive. I mean, you would think that any good deed is a good deed.
Right. That's what we're going to pack today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people assume religion and morality, those are fixed things, like universal.
Like everyone agrees on them.
Yeah, but this paper's really cool. It breaks those concepts down and shows how different cultures actually assemble them, Like, they're not as straightforward as we think.
It's like those IKEA instructions. You think you're building the same bookshelf as everyone else, but
Right.
your bookshelf might end up looking a little wonky.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And it changes over time, too, right? Like, what was moral 100 years ago?
Oh, totally different.
Yeah. Not be now. The paper gives this crazy example. Simon Lokoto. He was Uganda's ethics minister.
Ethics minister. Okay.
But he led this whole campaign against homosexuality.
Whoa.
Huh.
A bit of a contradiction now.
A big one. And it shows how moral in one place can be the total opposite somewhere else. It challenges us to see things from other perspectives.
It makes you realize morality is maybe more like subjective, not this absolute thing.
Definitely. And the paper even argues that thinking of morality as just like being nice is way too simple.
So it's not just about holding doors open and saying please and thank you.
No, it's deeper than that. It's about things like loyalty to your group, respecting authority, even ideas about purity can be a moral driver.
Okay, give me an example.
So let's say punishing someone harshly for, breaking a group's norms. To us, that might seem harsh, but to them, it's about protecting the group, like it's a good thing.
Oh, interesting. So their intentions are good, even if the actions seem a little rough around the edges.
Exactly.
Okay, so if being nice isn't the whole story, how do we even start mapping out morality? All these different ideas.
That's where moral foundations theory comes in, or MFT. It's like this compass with 5 points.
A moral compass, I like it.
Yeah, so there's care harm, fairness cheating, loyalty betrayal, authority subversion, and sanctity degradation.
Okay, 5 points. So different cultures emphasize different points.
Exactly. Like in Western societies, the weird societies, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic,
Weird, got it.
we tend to focus on care and fairness, like individual rights, autonomy, that sort of thing.
That's why we're always talking about freedom and stuff, right?
Right. But in more traditional cultures, it might be all about loyalty to the group, respecting elders, or upholding sacred traditions.
So everyone has the compass, but they're pointing it in different directions.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next big question, right? What about those cognitive quirks that might be the foundation of religious belief itself?
Okay, let's get into the brain stuff. What are these religious foundations?
So first up, you have hyperactive agency detection, or HADDs. Imagine you're home alone, it's dark, every little noise makes you think, intruder.
Ah, yeah, the spook factor.
It's our brains over-perceiving agents. They might not even be there. And researchers think this might be why we believe in spirits or gods.
Because we're always looking for something causing things.
Right.
Like wind rustling leaves. Is it just wind or is it a spirit?
Right. Our ancestors had to be on high alert, so it kind of makes sense.
Better safe than sorry. Okay, what else? What's the next foundation?
Okay, so there's theory of mind, or TOM. This is our ability to, understand what others are thinking, their intentions, beliefs.
So, if I see someone frowning, I can guess they're having a bad day.
Exactly. And researchers think this TOM might extend to how we understand gods and spirits, too. Like, if we can get inside other human minds, maybe it's easier to think gods have minds, too.
We're just applying that social intuition to a bigger picture.
Right.
Okay, what other mental quirks contribute to religious beliefs?
Then there's teleofunctional reasoning, which is just a fancy way of saying we look for purpose in everything. Like, why is the sky blue? Or why are we here?
Here's the why questions, right?
Yeah. And religions often provide answers to those big why questions. They give us a sense of meaning and purpose.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
McKay and Whitehouse also talk about the ritual stance. We tend to copy actions even if we don't know why.
Like following a recipe without knowing why each step matters? You just trust it'll make a good cake.
Exactly. And this is important for religion because rituals are a big part of it. Ceremonies, prayers, offerings.
They might not have a practical purpose,
Yeah.
but they have symbolic meaning.
Yeah, and our willingness to just go through the motions might make us more open to those ritualistic aspects of religion.
It's about participating, not just understanding. All right, what's the last one? Hit me with the final religious foundation.
This one might seem strange, but it's kin detection mechanisms. It's what helps us tell family from strangers.
Kin detection, so family ties. How does that connect to religion?
Well, religion often creates a sense of kinship or family among its members, like a brotherhood or sisterhood.
I see. So those mechanisms that evolved to help us identify blood relatives might be repurposed to create a sense of belonging within a religious group.
Yeah, that's the idea.
We've covered a lot. Now, the big question, how do these moral and religious foundations actually connect?
Mm.
Are they like hardwired together in our brains?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, and it's something we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. So, are these moral and religious foundations hardwired together? It's a fascinating question, and McKay and Whitehouse actually suggest they're probably not directly linked biologically speaking.
So like there's no gene that says if you're compassionate, you'll also be drawn to, I don't know, Buddhism or something.
Right, it doesn't seem to work that way. But here's the thing, culture plays a huge role. It kind of weaves those foundations together in all sorts of ways.
Culture's the thread connecting those moral and religious ideas.
Exactly, and they give this really cool example, the Pomio Kivum.
Pomio what now?
Kivung, it's a cargo cult in Papua New Guinea.
A cargo cult. Okay, you got to explain that one.
So they believe their ancestors will return from the dead, bringing all this amazing Western technology with them cargo.
Okay, that's an interesting belief.
It is, but here's the twist. They believe this depends on their moral conduct as a group.
So if they act badly, the ancestors are going to be like, nope, no cargo for you.
Pretty much. Their moral code, it's based on the 10 Commandments, actually. And it covers all those 5 moral foundations we talked about. Avoiding harm, fairness, loyalty, respect, purity.
The whole shebang.
Yeah.
So their entire moral system is linked to this belief in their ancestors and the cargo. It's like a cosmic reward system.
Yeah, you could say that. It's a powerful example of how culture can really intertwine moral behavior and religious belief. But this brings up another big debate. What's the real function of religion? Like, why do we even have it?
Okay, let's get into it. What are the theories out there?
There are 2 main camps, the adaptationists and the byproduct theorists.
Catchy names.
Right. So the adaptationists, they think religion evolved as a tool for survival. Like, it gave our ancestors some sort of advantage.
A leg up in a tough world. How so?
Well, one big argument is that religion, especially through rituals, helps create social bonds and encourages cooperation. Think about it. You have these shared rituals, they create a sense of belonging, a shared purpose, which can be really powerful for bringing people together.
Makes sense. A unified group can overcome challenges better than a bunch of individuals, right?
Exactly. And this idea of group solidarity is super important for understanding how religion might have helped large societies form. Because in small family-based groups, cooperation's already there, right? Shared genes, close relationships.
Yeah, you kind of have to cooperate with your family whether you like it or not.
Right. But in larger societies, with strangers, you need other ways to build trust and encourage people to work together. And that's where adaptationists say religion stepped in.
So, rituals, moral codes, belief in a higher power, they help bridge that gap between strangers and allow for larger, more complex societies to develop.
That's the idea. And there's some evidence to support it. For example, studies have found that rituals, especially those involving sacrifice or synchronized movement, they can actually boost cooperation among participants.
So those intense shared experiences create a bond, even if you don't know the other person that well. Okay, so that's the adaptationist view. What about those byproduct theorists? What do they think?
They see religion not as an intentional adaptation, but as a side effect of how our brains work. Remember those religious foundations we talked about?
By HADDs and all that.
Exactly. Byproduct theorists argue those same predispositions. They're useful in other ways, but they also make us prone to religious belief.
So our brains are built to look for agents, seek purpose, and follow rituals. But those tendencies can also lead us to believe in things that aren't real, like supernatural beings or magic.
It's like those optical illusions. Our brains are trying to make sense of the world, but they can get tricked.
So they're saying religion is basically a cognitive illusion.
It's more nuanced than that, but it gets at the core of their argument. They think religious concepts play on our innate tendencies, like over-perceiving agents and looking for purpose in everything.
So we might be drawn to supernatural explanations because they just feel right to our brains.
Right. And while byproduct theorists agree that religion has social consequences, they don't think it evolved for that purpose.
So the social benefits are a bonus, not the main reason religion exists. Okay, so we've got these two opposing views. Adaptationists see religion as a tool for social cohesion, while byproduct theorists see it as a result of how our brains are wired. Which one's right?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Both sides have good points. It's likely a combination of both. We humans are
We're
complex.
not always so easy to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to add another layer of complexity, let's talk about moralizing gods and their role in the rise of large-scale societies.
Moralizing gods, those sound intense.
They are. These are gods who are believed to, watch human behavior and punish those who break the moral code.
Like cosmic judges keeping tabs on us.
Exactly. And the debate is, was belief in these moralizing gods essential for large, complex societies to develop?
Okay, so this ties back into that adaptationist versus byproduct debate. What are the arguments here?
So on the adaptationist side, you have researchers like Ara Norenzayan. He argues that believing in moralizing gods was crucial for getting strangers to cooperate.
Because the fear of divine punishment would keep people in line, even if they didn't know each other or weren't related.
Exactly. It's like a supernatural surveillance system, ensuring everyone follows the rules.
So societies with moralizing gods would have an advantage. They'd be more likely to flourish.
Right. And that's why those societies were able to grow larger and more complex. Now, on the flip side,
The byproduct folks.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
researchers like Pascal Boyer and Nicolas Baumard, they don't deny the social impact of these gods, but they offer a different take.
So they're not convinced about the whole divine police force idea.
Not entirely. They argue that moralizing gods became popular because they were cognitively appealing, not necessarily because they actually led to more cooperation.
So it's more about fitting into our brain's wiring than actually being effective at enforcing morality.
Exactly. Remember those tendencies we talked about, like over-perceiving agents and seeking purpose? Boyer and Baumard think moralizing gods are so compelling because they tap right into those pre-existing biases in our brains.
So we're drawn to them, even if they're not real, because they just make sense to us on a subconscious level.
Right, and that cognitive stickiness helps these concepts get remembered and passed down through generations.
So it's not so much that the gods themselves are promoting cooperation, it's more about how well they capture our attention and resonate with our existing cognitive frameworks. Okay, so we have these contrasting views on moralizing gods. Are they tools for social control, or are they just a side effect of how our brains work?
And here's the thing, there's actually evidence for both sides.
Of course there is. It's never simple, is it? What kind of evidence are we talking about?
Researchers have done these cool studies called religious priming experiments. They basically subtly activate thoughts about God or religion in people's minds and then see how it affects their behavior.
So does thinking about God actually make people act differently?
Well, that's what they're trying to figure out. And the results are interesting. Some studies show that when you prime people with religious concepts, including the idea of a watching God, it can lead to more pro-social behavior, like being more generous, honest, cooperative.
So thinking about God might actually make people more likely to do good deeds. But didn't we say earlier that sometimes it has the opposite effect?
Ah, yes, that's where things get even more complex. And it's something we'll delve into in the final part of our deep dive. So where were we? Oh yeah, those religious priming studies.
Right, thinking about God sometimes makes people act better, sometimes not. What's the deal with that? Does that mean religion is, like, bad for you?
I wouldn't say religion itself is good or bad. It's more like it interacts with, what's already there in a person, in a society. Religion gives you a framework for meaning, but it's the specific content that matters.
So, like, some people find meaning in helping others, while others find it in, I don't know, being super strict about rules or even judging others.
Exactly. And that difference in interpretation, it can lead to very different behaviors. You have to think about that whole spectrum.
It's almost like religion is a tool. It can be used to build things up or tear things down, depending on who's using it. It can inspire people to do amazing things, but it can also be twisted to justify some pretty awful stuff.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why it's so important to think critically, to make ethical choices regardless of what your religious beliefs might be.
So we can't just blindly follow religious rules and assume that anything goes
Right.
just because it's done in the name of religion.
Exactly. We have to judge actions based on ethical principles that go beyond any specific doctrine. It's about having your own moral compass, one that's grounded in reason, empathy, and respect for everyone.
It makes you think about what's happening in the world today. All the conflict and division, often justified through religion, like that example we talked about, the ethics minister campaigning against homosexuality.
Right. That really highlights how important it is to really analyze, the specifics of what people believe and how those beliefs affect their actions. Like McKay and Whitehouse said, we have to fractionate both religion and morality if we want to understand how they work together.
So no more lumping everything together under those big labels, right?
Right. We need to look at the individual beliefs, the practices, the social structures. It's all connected.
It's like that study we talked about, the one about priming people with the idea of a watching God. Sometimes it led to good behavior, sometimes not. It's complicated.
Absolutely. Context matters. The same religious idea can have different effects depending on the person and the environment they're in.
Okay, so big picture. We've learned that religion is powerful. It can be good, it can be bad, it all depends.
Yeah, one of the biggest takeaways for me is that we got to let go of those black and white views of religion and morality. It's all much more nuanced than that.
So no more religion makes you good, or atheism equals immorality type of thinking.
Exactly. Those stereotypes just don't reflect the real world. When you look at how religious beliefs connect to moral behaviors, it's obvious that culture has played a huge role.
It's so interesting how different societies have found unique ways to connect those moral and religious foundations we talked about. Even within the same religion, there's so
That
much diversity.
Yeah, and that diversity is so important. We need to be open-minded, to think critically, to question things. Don't just accept what you're told, engage with these ideas and form your own conclusions.
So no matter what your beliefs are, the key is to stay curious and keep learning.
Yes, engage with these topics thoughtfully, critically, and don't be afraid to ask tough questions.
This has been such a great conversation. As we wrap up, what's the one thing we want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
Well, for me, it's that the relationship between religion and morality, it's not a solved puzzle,
Yeah.
It's an ongoing conversation. And we need to keep having that conversation to keep learning and refining our understanding. There are no easy answers when you're dealing with something this profound.
Yeah, it's about the journey of exploration, not just finding a single answer. And that journey can help us understand ourselves and the world around us in a deeper, more compassionate way.
Well said. The more we understand about this complex relationship, the better prepared we'll be to face the ethical challenges of our time.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep exploring, learn more about different religions and their teachings, think about the role of faith in your own life, and talk about it with others. Keep your minds open, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep diving deep. Until next time, happy exploring.